I didn't want to go to John. Most people said, look at John. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory, glory of the only begotten. Look, clearly Jesus is claiming to be God here. Well, number one, no, it's not Jesus talking, that's John talking. But number two, that's the Gospel of John. That's really, really late. I want to look at the beginnings of Christianity. I want to see how, from the very first part of the Christian message, Jesus is proclaimed as God. And so I went to the first Gospel, the Gospel of Mark. And it was precisely there where I read Mark chapter 14, verse 62, which when I understood what that verse was, it blew my mind. Here Jesus claims to be the Son of Man from Daniel. He claims to be the I Am from Exodus. And he claims to be the one sitting at the right hand of the power from Psalms 110, verse 1. Jesus very clearly claims to be God in Mark chapter 14, verse 62, when you understand its context.
Now there's something very profound in that, because as a Muslim, the Quran doesn't even let you believe that Jesus died on the cross. The Quran says in Surah An-Nisa, which is chapter 4, verse 157, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. He was not killed, nor was he crucified, but so it appeared to them. So the Quran denies that Jesus was killed by crucifixion. But if you study the history of Jesus' life, I'm not talking about Christians studying the history of Jesus' life. I'm talking about atheist, skeptical, agnostic scholars like Paula Fredrickson, like Marcus Borg, like Bart Ehrman, none of whom are Christians. All of them say, if we can know anything about Jesus' life, it's that he died by crucifixion under Pontius Pilate. The death of Jesus is the most solid fact regarding his life, historically speaking, and that alone challenges the truth of the Quran. And as a Muslim, I had to really wrestle with that.
So I said, all right, fine. Well, how do we know he died on the cross? Did he actually die on the cross? Because the Quran told me Jesus did not die on the cross. The Quran says in chapter 4, verse 157, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ. We killed him not, nor did they crucify him, but so it was made to appear to them. So as a Muslim, I believed what the Quran told me. Jesus did not die on the cross. But Christians think Jesus certainly died on the cross. So this was a good litmus test right here. Which one's true? Which one's false? So I said, I'm going to study Jesus' death on the cross from a historical perspective. I want to see, did he actually die on the cross? And no matter how you look at it, whether you're an atheist, agnostic, Jew, Buddhist, however you look at it, if you're a historian and you're studying the evidence of Jesus' life, you have to conclude that he died on the cross. And David said, Nabeel, let me tell you something. We have in our possession today over 5,500 Greek New Testament manuscripts with which we can reconstruct the entire New Testament. And if we didn't have any of the Greek New Testament manuscripts, we have over 10,000 Latin New Testament manuscripts. If we didn't have any of them, we have 8,000 Coptic Syriac manuscripts. If we didn't have any of them, we've got 36,000 quotations of the New Testament. All of these by themselves are enough to recreate the entire New Testament. And the people who wrote the New Testament were the disciples, and these people were multilingual. They could understand Aramaic, they could understand Greek, they could hear in one and write in another without losing the message whatsoever. I said, David, you're making this stuff up. Because I have talked to so many Christians and not a single one of them has said that before. And he said, try me, let's do it. Let's study this together. Let's look into these things together. And I said, let's do it. And so we became friends. And so my friend David, after sharing arguments with me over the course of a year, it actually took a year to discuss the reliability of the New Testament, I began to conclude, hey, this book is actually reliable. There's no way that the New Testament, because of the way it was written and proliferated, there's no way anybody could have come and intentionally altered it such that it wouldn't have been caught. I wish I had time to go into the details, but there was no method of external control over the scripture like that. It proliferated much more organically. It took me a while. But I began to realize that when I read the New Testament the way it's supposed to be read, from the perspective of those who understand the Old Testament, then Jesus very clearly claims to be God.
So the point is this, let me be real, if you got a good husband, by the way, I'm not talking about these guys who don't pray, jahil clowns, who don't pray, who oppress their wives. A good man who practices, who fears Allah, who's good to his wife, takes care of his wife. He comes and he says, I want a second wife. All hell breaks loose. And then we blame this man. Yeah, but why are you keeping it secret? What else should he do?
This is a test to see how Allah is testing her, to see how she responds.
Yeah.
If she decides to do the opposite, which is, throw the divorce card or throw this card, then ultimately she's falling into the act of disobedience
Thank
as
you,
opposed
thank
to
you.
family.
Which I'm now expected as a Muslim man to follow, is not the religion of Al-Islam, it's the religion of women's feelings. I'm not going to follow that religion. With full respect to you. I'm not going to do prostration to the collective hormonal and emotional status of men or women or children or anybody else.
You're saying if he's man enough. If your husband came to you man enough and said to you he wants a second wife.
At least then it's not secret.
Sister,
I knew
one
about
second,
it.
one second. Do you know about it? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna say to me, yeah, you can?
Imagine a Muslim politician going to a factory which is making weapons for the terrorists. Now, if you go for the inauguration of a factory which is making weapons for terrorists, who are killing thousands of innocent human beings, is much better than going for the inauguration of a temple or going for inauguration of a church. Because as we all know, that shirk is the biggest sin in Islam. So, in no way can you work for a company or help in the building of a place of worship which is involving shirk. Place of worship of the other religions besides Islam, like building a temple or building a church, it is haram. It's a grave major sin, and surely you'll be held accountable. So Allah is checking you that if Allah gives you risk through a major sin, will you take it or not? Will you take up the job or not? Allah is testing you.
I would feel so hurt if my husband couldn't talk to me and go and marry somebody else behind my back. And then now it's leaking into lying to me on a day-to-day basis, going to meet some next chick. I don't even know, did she test? Because let's face
it's a
it,
reality,
a
it's a
lot of
reality.
men marry women without even getting certain tests. And then if he brings me some disease back, then it will be his janaza for real.
Literally.
Look, I'm saying to you, I don't recommend this. But we started off by saying that there's two things. There's one aspect which is jurisprudential, and another aspect which is application. Jurisprudential, the man can do it. It's up to the man. No woman can take that right away from the man. It's
Okay,
impossible.
So let's get this right, yeah? So that Islamically, any of us can get a secret second wife.
Absolutely.
Or any man for that
No,
matter.
not secret. We can get Islamically. There is no problem in a man getting married to another woman in Misyar without the first wife's knowledge. However, the question is, and there's no khilaf in this. There's actually, I've not seen one solitary difference of opinion in any of the 14 generations of Islam. It's not there.
Which is?
Any scholar saying that no, a woman needs to know, she needs to tell her, doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's it.
This is why when people say all religions teach the same thing, I'm like, that's an absurd statement. These are diametrically opposed. Let me put it to you once again in another way. In Christianity, you have to believe Jesus is God to go to heaven. In Islam, if you believe Jesus is God, you're going to hell. Simple as that. They can't be more diametrically opposed.
We sit down and we talk about it, and I take my selfish needs out of it, i.e. me wanting him all to myself. I need to understand them. So I need to sit down and I need to really think about how this is going to affect him. It could lead him into doing zina.
Because my wife she always gave me the sort of the feeling that I could be open with her. I told her at one point that, look, babe, that's the sister.
Is that you, yeah?
I'm possibly one of
If we're talking about secret second wife, if my husband has gone behind my back, that to me is cheating, even if it is
fine.
Islamically correct.
Feminist sisters who love their sisters, who will die for their sisters, will take a bullet for their sisters, but will not share their husbands for their sisters.